We met against a backdrop of chaos. Neither of us could predict the turmoil ahead. In the 22nd century, technological advancements make it possible to accurately measure and quantify a person's personality traits, as well as their fluctuating mental state. Psychological tendencies are calculated, registered, and policed. As such, the state is able to pass judgment on a soul using numerical values. People commonly refer to these numbers as one's psychopaths.
Some figures are more important than others. A psychopath that gauges an individual's violent nature and moral leanings is called a crime coefficient. The higher a person's crime coefficient climbs, the more likely they are to break the law in some way. If your crime coefficient exceeds the acceptable range, you'll be arrested and isolated, branded a latent criminal.
The Sybil system is in charge of detecting such potential lawbreakers and protecting the mental health of society. It's overseen by the Ministry of Welfare. When a person's crime coefficient is reaching dangerous levels, Sybil takes action. That usually means sending in the Public Safety Bureau's Criminal Investigation Department to handle the threat. It can be difficult for those with low crime coefficients to speculate what someone on the other end of the spectrum might be thinking or feeling. But other latent criminals understand the psychology of those who would disrupt our society. Their assistance is vital, as time and time again they've proven to be efficient resources in protecting the status quo. Latent criminals hired by the Public Safety Bureau are allowed to return to something like a normal life. These agents are called enforcers. I was assigned to Division 1 of the Criminal Investigation Department as an inspector. Part of my job was to oversee our enforcers.
I eventually found myself working as an enforcer under the watchful eye of Akane Tsunemori.
Division 1 consisted of Mr. Kogami, myself, and fellow inspector Mr. Ginaza. Our other enforcers were Masayoka, Kunizuka, and Kagari. Kuranamori served as our analyst. Together, we were able to successfully investigate and resolve a number of cases.
Though I executed my duties as best I could, there was another goal in the forefront of my mind. It involved the mastermind behind the unsolved case that got my partner killed, Shogo Makishima.
Shogo Makishima was directly involved in multiple heinous crimes. I knew that all too well. In the process of pursuing him, a close friend of mine was killed right in front of my eyes. As a result, Kagari learned the truth about the Sybil system and went missing.
Makishima was criminally asymptomatic, meaning his crime coefficient didn't increase despite his actions.
Due to this unique trait, the Sybil system was unable to sentence him to death, allowing him the chance to escape from custody.
As we continued our pursuit of Makishima, I had the opportunity to introduce Inspector Tsunemori to my mentor, a man I know as Professor Saiga.
Joji Saiga had previously taught criminal psychology at the Public Safety Bureau. Mr. Kogami was his former student. Not everyone agreed that Makishima should be arrested.
I wanted to kill him, but Inspector Tsunemori believed he needed to be judged by the law. We found ourselves at odds with each other. And so, I fled from the Public Safety Bureau, abandoning my job and my life.
Mr. Kogami left the Public Safety Bureau. To him, revenge was more important than everything else we were working toward.
Despite Akane's protests, I eventually achieved my goal and killed Shogo Makishima.
Mr. Kogami ignored the authority of the Sybil system and murdered the man he hated so much. Then, he disappeared. Mr. Kogami was a latent criminal on the run. Mr. Masayoka died in the line of duty. And Mr. Ginaza was demoted to enforcer because his crime coefficient was rising at an alarming rate. To replace them, Mika Shimotsky was appointed our new inspector. A handful of enforcers, Sakuya Togane, Teppei Sugo, and Sho Hinakawa, also joined Division 1. Soon, we had another case on our hands. We were after a man named Kirito Kamui, who somehow scanned not as an individual, but multiple people. At the same time, we faced threats closer to home. Enforcer Sakuya Togane turned out to be a dangerous man with an abnormal obsession. Before he was taken care of, he brutally murdered my grandmother. Once Kamui and Togane were both dead, our investigations were considered closed.
I stayed on the move, bouncing from country to country. Japan may have been under the protection of the Sibyl system, but chaos and conflict was the norm abroad. I became something akin to a mercenary, and after joining a resistance movement, I was unexpectedly reunited with Akane Tsunemori. Together we observed the export of the Sibyl system and the political corruption that followed.
Mr. Kogami and I worked together to try to make the world a safer place.
I told myself I would never see her again. That I couldn't. It was better for both of us to stay apart.
I'm a detective in Japan, and he's a fugitive latent criminal. If we found ourselves in the wrong circumstances, our reunion could end in bloodshed. And yet...
no one knows what the future holds. Doesn't matter how far I run, destiny always has a way of finding me. While wandering the Tibetan Himalayas Alliance Kingdom, I received an unexpected opportunity based out of Japan. My contact was Frederica Hanashiro, an agent of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Overseas Coordination Bureau. Thanks to the global expansion of the Sibyl system, the MOFA created a strategic group called the Suppressing Action Department, and they were recruiting. Officially, the department's job was to collect intelligence, but meeting Frederica was all it took for me to realize their actual mission wasn't so simple. Their true objective was to get rid of a menace known as the Peacebreakers. And so, the Suppressing Action Department brought me on to fight violence with violence. Not too long before, I would have refused the offer. Why go back to Japan and risk my life? To be a pawn. But my stupid pride wasn't gonna get in the way this time. I had a new outlook on the world, and even if they used me as a disposable soldier, and I ended up getting killed on some suicide mission, there were things I still needed to do in Japan.
The new inspectors were burdened by complicated pasts and uncertain futures.
An elite few lived beyond the purview of the Sibyl system. Congressmen and inspectors of Bifrost. They exploited their special privileges and used the Sibyl system to play a dangerous game. One that only they benefited from.
Arata Shindo's father was Atsushi. He killed himself after fatally shooting K. Mikhail Ignatov's older brother. So why were these two men now teaming up as buddies? And how exactly did I end up imprisoned? The truth must be recounted and recorded. So I will tell you everything. 2 years ago, this is what happened. It's time. Begin the operation.
The Overseas Investigation Division's Field Survey Team, known as the Peacebreakers for short. From above!
But even if that's true, I believe in you because you want to do what's right.
Mankind created an all-powerful god and named it Sibyl. But it is also man who now attempts to kill that god!
Give up. The law will judge you now.